Okay, I got some more news for you about what's happening in the world of technology. Hopefully, this news will be valuable to you. The first thing I want to talk about is the Microsoft outage that just happened. So, Microsoft 365 is a whole host of software that all of our clients pretty much use. It includes Microsoft Teams, email, Exchange Mail online, uh, even some of the apps and so on out there, SharePoint, OneDrive, and so on. Well, they had an unexpected outage, and the excuse for the outage said Microsoft came back, we've determined that a recent deployment contained a broken connection to an internal storage device, which has resulted in impact. In other words, they did something, they did an update, and it broke a bunch of stuff. But it took them a long time to get it resolved, which is a little bit of a shock. Now, this outage, we don't really know, was it global? Was everyone down? Microsoft's saying it was kind of a spotty outage that only impacted certain regions. But what we do know for sure is that there was some form of outage that started from, it was the evening of the 20th until around noon of the 21st when Microsoft officially claimed the outage was over. So what does that mean? I mean, if you had an outage and you were working last night in Microsoft Teams, or you were sending and receiving emails, maybe you didn't receive one or you couldn't connect, something happened. I wasn't on email or anything during that time last night. I was on there this morning and I did not see any problems. So unless I just missed it or it just went unnoticed, we were still functional. Okay, so when that happens though, you've moved your whole team into Microsoft Teams because people are working from home since COVID, right? And you can't collaborate, you can't communicate. It's pretty impactful to your business. So let's talk about uptime. What does that look like? So Microsoft, we kind of estimate they had about 15 hours of downtime. Microsoft, on average, has been right around 99.98% uptime, which is a fantastic number. 99.98% uptime is about 1.752 hours of downtime per year. That's really good. I mean, that's just really good architecture to have such little downtime. I mean, that's probably just pushing updates and there's a blink and it's back up for the most part throughout the year. So they have a really good system. But this outage that they had, if it truly was from last night until noon today, well, that is a lot of downtime. That's 15 hours or so is what we estimate. So what does 15 hours mean? That means that Microsoft is no longer getting the 3 nines, 99.9 something. They dropped down to a 99.82, and I guarantee you there's a lot of people at Microsoft unhappy about hitting that number. That is, there's a lot of turmoil in that organization about hitting that number. That is a stain on any organization to get below 3 nines. So that's not good. That is a lot of outage. Especially Microsoft averages 1.752 hours per year, and now they had 15 hours in one setting. Not good. So the outages for the rest of the year, they're scheduled or otherwise, are probably going to be shrank down quite a bit. So they're one of the things when we talk about outages in the cloud, a lot of people think 99% uptime sounds great. Well, 99% uptime in a year is 87.6 hours of downtime. So as you look at any cloud-hosted infrastructure, anything going out to a third party, you want to ask them what is their uptime or find that. And anything below 99.9 is pretty big. If you see a 99% uptime, that's not something to brag about. 87.6 hours of downtime, if it's consecutive, contiguous hours, well, that's business going out of business stuff, right? So you want to be aware of that. So, okay, next thing. New features in Microsoft Teams. You know, we're kind of talking about how they failed us and let us down. Now we're going to talk about some of the things they're actually releasing that we really like. So there's a couple of things coming out that I'm excited about. Microsoft's going to release Excel Live, which if you're familiar with using Microsoft Teams or OneDrive and SharePoint with Excel or with Word files, you can collaborate live on a file. You can be working in the file and you can literally see other people working in the file and watch it change in real time. Fantastic for meetings, for sharing documents. Legal teams will use it a lot to help update things and work together. It's an amazing collaborative tool. So that's going to be coming out here soon. And then the other thing that I'm even more excited about, and that is going to be Microsoft Teams Connect. Microsoft Teams Connect allows you to now connect to other people's tenants, but it's done different because you've always been able to connect to another tenant. So like what I mean by tenant is we've got our Microsoft Office 365 instance. I can allow someone to have a chat with me on their network or on their Teams to mine. But to do that, I got to switch back and forth between tenants, which is a pain to do. And you lose some visibility into the one tenant while you're in the other. Well, what they're going to do is they're going to make it so that the channels from a different tenant are visible inside your tenant. So you can be in your tenant talking to your employees, having full collaboration with your employees, and then have someone else you're communicating with in a channel in visible from your tenant that you can then talk to. The downside, they're really accessible. So if you have an employee or yourself and you're trying to talk to someone and you click and you see Susie's down here in the tenant, and I've got a Susie that works for me, I may copy a whole bunch of proprietary information, put it in the wrong chat. Now Susie's got it that works for another company. Maybe she's a vendor that I don't want her to see that or whatever. So in that case, it is more dangerous. So, and a lot of people don't do cross collaboration between companies. Now that it's going to become easy, people are going to do it. So it's very important to look at your Microsoft Teams and turn off that feature unless you really want your team to be able to collaborate with other people in other Microsoft Teams. If your people are very tech savvy and understand technology, they're going to do this whether you want them to or not. So you need to be able to go in and either turn it off, mitigate it in some way, control it, maybe do some training so people understand the liability of doing that. Because anytime something gets easier, it's also easier to blow up and cause yourself some grief. So that's a really good one. All right, so I want to talk about cloud real quick. I'm going to go back to the Microsoft outage. I want to talk about what cloud really is and how that works. So any cloud provider, and there's lots of different types of cloud providers. There's the cloud provider like Microsoft that serves up their own custom-made applications, and they're delivered through usually a browser, like it's just a web page and you can access your email, but you can also connect through an Outlook client. But it's not giving you a full desktop view. It's an application, or an application connects to a third-party solution like Microsoft 365. So like Outlook, your installed Outlook client connecting to Microsoft 365 so you can read your email in the Outlook client, or that Outlook client is being delivered through a browser. Hope that made sense. I feel like I did a little word salad. Apologize for that. All right, so that's one way to do it. The next way to do it is when they say cloud, it's really just someone else's computer. So what that means is you've got, say, a terminal server, a Citrix farm, but you're delivering up applications with a full desktop view, or in a what's called remote app with Microsoft, and Citrix calls it something else I forget right off. That is truly on someone else's server that they're maintaining. That is really good if you have someone you trust controlling the host and the server, and then the third-party software company controls the software. If you have two companies managing that, you can succeed. If you have one, you will fail. Now, let me explain that. Electronic medical records company, almost all of them claim to have their own hosted environment and their own cloud, and you don't need to have all these servers on-prem. Go to our cloud and move all your infrastructure over to us. So when you do that, when you move all your infrastructure over to them, if they're serving that up through a terminal server or Citrix or whatever, now you have no visibility. And so if things are slow, and I've seen this so many times, when things are slow or your doctors are frustrated, things aren't popping up, you go to your medical records provider, who also is your host for your servers in the virtual environment, in the cloud, and you say, things are slow, help me out here, help me fix this. And they come back almost always with, well, that's on your end. Everything looks fine on the server. Your internet's slow, or you're having problems with your network, or your computer's slow, or whatever. They never ever accept responsibility for that. I've never seen that happen. They always have a default, it's you, not them. And it kind of makes sense, because probably a lot of the time it is you, not them, for their clients. But that is the patent answer. Then when you push and push, eventually, when you get your gut full and you get your attorney and you're trying to get out of this multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars contract and you're fighting these people, then all of a sudden the research becomes real. They're showing that, yes, they were performing and you don't have all the logs because you didn't have an IT guy that could really track all this. You're not going to win that. You're just going to be miserable, and eventually you're going to change EMRs, or you're going to move it back out of the cloud on-prem, which I've seen that happen as well. So when I say that cloud is good, Microsoft 365, even Google, which we don't use or sell Google, it's not a bad product, but those are good. Those are cloud applications that are very robust, very they're really just standards now. They're really what everyone needs to be on. There's no arguing against it. That's where you should be. So that's easy to make a decision on. But when we talk about moving applications, databases to the cloud, it becomes a different animal. Again, I'm going to reiterate, it's okay to have your application company, the company that makes your software, an EMR, Allscripts, Greenway, Centricity, any of those companies can make the software and they can support it. Where they host that is on a server that may be in the cloud. Do not put that on a server that they control. Put it on a server that a third party controls, and that third party advocates for you. Whenever they say you say there's a problem, the third party looks at the actual server, digs into the logs, and says, you know what? It's not on this end, it's on your end, and they have control of both those connectivities to solve that problem. If you don't have that, if you have your application provider also running your server hosting, the infrastructure with the CPU and the processor and all that performance, if they control that, they're going to tell you to go kick rocks. They're going to say it's on your end, your stuff's slow, you need to fix it. You're never going to get anywhere. You're going to be frustrated. I've seen it too many times. So I hope that makes sense without being too much word salad. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. That's all the news I've got for today. Have a great rest of your week. Thanks.